chapter 656 to 658. Tobirama, this disciple of yours has lost his mind in the chase of power, Hashirama said solemnly. Such a person cannot be allowed to remain Hokage because he would wreck Konoha. We must put an end to him at all costs. This is truly your responsibility, Orochimaru said with a smile. After all, Shimura Danzo is your own disciple. Senju Tobirama-sama. Shodaime gave Orochimaru a harsh look and sighed, choosing not to say anything to him. After a brief moment of self-reflection, he shifted his gaze towards Homusubi and exclaimed, "This is a surprise! Another pair of eternal Mangekyu Sharingan. But now that I sense it, unlike Danzo's, your eyes don't seem to be full of wickedness or malice. Are you the current patriarch of the Uchiha clan?" Nidaime awoke from his reverie and glanced at Homusubi with a thoughtful expression. "Elder brother, her attire is quite similar to that of the other guy we battled against the last time Orochimaru summoned us." He remembered after seeing the intricacies of Homusubi's mask and cloak and told Hashirama. Perhaps they're both affiliated with the same organization. Tobirama was describing their battle with Fujin at the ruins of the shrine. Despite the fact that both Shodaime and Nidaime were under Orochimaru's control at the time, Nidaime recalls the events of that battle vividly, as well as the foe they faced that night. But unlike Nidaime, Shodaime isn't so convinced. That level of the fight was nothing to him. "Huh?" he wondered. "Tobirama, are you sure?" Fujin didn't leave a strong enough impact on Shodaime that he would remember him immediately. Orochimaru glanced worriedly at Homusubi after hearing the Senju brothers' chat. He is concerned that Homusubi will be unable to contain her arrogance and will say something silly, complicating their predicament, which is something Orochimaru knows he wouldn't be able to afford in this situation. On the surface, it may appear that Orochimaru has complete authority over Shodaime and Nidaime, but he knows this is not the truth. Even if Shodaime and Nidaime haven't been restored to their former glory, their current power is incredibly strong, making controlling the two of them, particularly Shodaime Hokage, a difficult chore even for Orochimaru. Orochimaru is confident that, if Shodaime sincerely intends, he will be able to free himself from Orochimaru's influence at any time. That's why Orochimaru is terrified of Shodaime Hokage discovering the truth. It will be doom for them if they discover that not only Danzo, but also Orochimaru and Homusubi are the masterminds behind this ceremony. Faced with Shodaime's inquiring look, Nidaime's piercing gaze, and Orochimaru's anxious gaze, Homusubi delicately bowed to the two Hokage and said respectfully, "Shodaime Hokage-sama, Nidaime Hokage-sama. I'm sorry, but I'm not the current patriarch of the Uchiha clan. Rather, I'm the Konoha Military Police Force's vice captain. Several mysterious disappearances of my clansmen have occurred in recent years, and we assume that these disappearances are linked to the Amatsukami group. So, on the Patriarch's orders, I entered the Amatsukami organization in order to learn the truth and, if possible, rescue my clansmen. However, after more inquiry, I discovered that the disappearance is actually linked to Shimura Danzo, not the Amatsukami organization. I found a few more secrets, including this ritual and how Danzo planned to use my clansmen as a sacrifice for this ritual, in addition to this stunning reality. I ran here to put an end to his ambition, but I was a step late and couldn't save them. If only... So that's the situation." Shodaime groaned. Danzo did indeed steal the pair of eternal Mangekyu Sharingan in his eye sockets. Nidaime's eyes furrowed as he listened intently to Orochimaru and Homusubi's explanation. Tobirama finds it difficult to comprehend that in this period there are two pairs of eternal Mangekyu Sharingan. However, given the current situation and his knowledge of the ins and outs of things, he is unable to dismiss Orochimaru and Homusubi's comments. While Nidaime was pondering Homusubi's comments, Danzo erupted in a violent roar from the rubble of the ceremonial altar, drawing everyone's attention. Danzo was stooped over, the tips of his fingers brushing the ground. His breath was heavy, and a massive plume of white smoke billowed from his nostrils with each exhale. With his tangled hair full of sweat and fluids, as well as the dark red erosive color surrounding him, he seemed like a devil crawling out of hell. Sensei, your period has already passed. Today is the dawn of a new era, an era that exclusively belongs to me, said Danzo, looking at Tobirama W. I will be the sole ruler of the whole shinobi world during this age. Tobirama sighed regretfully when he heard such remarks. Danzo, you've become this because of your greed and hunger for power. It's partly my fault that you've become this. As your sensei, it is now my obligation to correct my mistakes, so I shall put an end to your goals. As he said these words, Tobirama's expression turned cold. His body flickered and vanished in a white flash as soon as he concluded his remarks. Whoosh! Shodaime clapped his hands and said, Wood style! Wood dragon jutsu! In the same instant. Instantly, a massive wooden dragon appeared from the ground and began to coil around Danzo's blood-red Susanoo, getting tighter and tighter with each passing second, as if it would crush the Susanoo within it. Roar. But how can Danzo's Susanoo let the wood dragon crush it? Enraged, the Susanoo let out a furious roar, then tore the wooden dragon apart with its claws and fangs. Shodaime had underestimated the Susanu's strength. With its pure physical strength and the sharpness of its claws, the Susanoo was able to tear apart the wooden dragon in just a few attempts. Oh ho! This is a pleasant surprise. In a moment of astonishment, Hashirama mumbled, but that was it. He reached out his hands and clapped furiously without looking back. Bang, bang, bang! 3 wooden dragons sprang from the earth, bigger, thicker, tougher, and darker than the previous one, and entwined Danzo's Susanoo. Who were the sacrifices for summoning them? Homusubi couldn't help but wonder as she watched Hashirama's performance. The Edo Tensei summons' strength is also determined by the summoner's sacrifices. The better and more powerful the sacrifices, the greater the Edo Tensei summons' strength. If the sacrifice is of poor quality, no matter how powerful the summon was when he was alive, he would never be able to function at his best in the Edo Tensei form. It's a secret, Orochimaru remarked, smirking. Homusubi shook her head and walked away from the situation. On the other hand, Nidaime noticed Danzo was preoccupied with the wooden dragons and decided to take advantage of the situation. He used his flying Raijin Jutsu and Earth Release Jutsu to get closer to Danzo, and as he reached him, he extended his hands and muttered softly, Soul Extraction Technique. Tobirama is a knowledgeable and experienced shinobi who was able to figure out the trouble in Danzo's soul with a single glance. Thus, he utilized the most appropriate jutsu to deal with him. When Danzo becomes the target of the soul extraction technique, all of the souls in his body, including Danzo's own, will be extracted, resulting in Danzo's instant death. As he watched Tobirama speeding toward him, Danzo felt a strong sense of crisis overwhelm him. His head may not have been working properly, but his instincts were still saving him. Danzo did everything he could based on his intuition, and just as Tobirama was about to touch him, his figure vanished. Even Tobirama, who was famed for his speed, was caught aback by his speed and was unable to respond in time. Tobirama glanced for evidence of Danzo while still in midair, shocked and surprised, and whispered quietly, His body flicker jutsu has gotten this fast? Don't be mistaken. Orochimaru chuckled as he explained from afar. That's not only body flicker jutsu, Nidaime Hokage-sama. It's the outcome of Danzo stealing swift-release Kekkei Genkai from a shinobi, similar to the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. Is that even possible? Both Nidaime and Shodaime wondered. Yes, It is feasible with the ritual he performed. Orochimaru nodded. A ritual to take other people's kekkei genkai? Nidaime wondered. Doesn't it sound strange? But it's the truth. He used this jutsu to steal not only the Uchiha clan's Sharingan and the swift release from an Uzumaki shinobi, but also several other kekkei genkai, such as Wood Release, Dark Release, Crystal Release, Storm Release, and Boil Release, to become the most perfect shinobi in existence, Orochimaru said. Tobirama couldn't help but frown after hearing Orochimaru's explanation. The most ideal shinobi? He wondered. He immediately looked down at the remnants of the altar beneath his feet and studied the numerous fuinjutsu carved on the altar's ruins. After a while, he looked along the chakra-carrying lines, and his face turned solemn. Remember, Nidaime Hokage is one of the top ninjutsu innovators and researchers in the world of shinobi. Senju Tobirama created some of the most famous and dangerous ninjutsu in the shinobi world, including, but not limited to, Kage Bunshin, Edo Tensei, Flying Raijin, and so on. As a result, he was able to understand the outline of the ritual ceremony performed in this volcanic cave in a matter of seconds, and couldn't help but be more regretful. Danzo, I'm beginning to think my decision was incorrect. Sarutobi is not deserving of the title of Hokage. Tobirama's abrupt remarks, Sarutobi not deserving, caught all three of them off guard, whether it was Hashirama, Orochimaru, or Homusubi. What are you trying to say? Ha 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 ha. Do you finally realize that instead of Sarutobi you should have picked me? Danzo laughed menacingly and mockingly inside the volcano. But it's already too late. Don't get me wrong, Danzo, Tobirama replied with a shake of his head. Even if I had another chance to pick between Sarutobi and you, I would choose Sarutobi. The only reason I believe Sarutobi is unworthy of being Hokage is that, despite knowing exactly what kind of person you are, he did not get rid of you while the situation was still managed. Boom! Tobirama was about to finish his sentence when Danzo appeared in front of him and punched him in the stomach. Bang! Tobirama flew away like a cannonball and smashed against the volcano's granite wall, accompanied by a deafening, loud roar. Smash! The form of Danzo became clearer after Tobirama was shot within the wall. He had used the swift release to its utmost limit in that blow just now, and as a result, his speed was so quick that only Homusubi, with the help of her eternal Mangekyu Sharingan, was able to catch his figure. Aside from her, no one could see Danzo's figure. Hashirama would have been able to sense Danzo with ease if he had been in Sennin mode. But because he wasn't, tracking Danzo with just his eyes was a difficult chore even for him. No one else, including Tobirama and Orochimaru, was able to grab Danzo's figure. Die! Shouted Danzo at this point. Die! 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 You must all perish! And instinctively weaved the hand signs. Thousands of exploding tags buried beneath the rocks erupted and shook the entire volcano, bringing it to the active stage. Boom, 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 boom. At the same time, blood-red crystals emerged at the cave's openings, sealing all possible exit routes from the volcano. Outside the volcano, all the shinobi outside the cave looked in the direction of the cave with worrisome expressions due to the strong shaking and explosions. What the hell is going on inside? Whether Konoha shinobi were tied to the Charka transmission array or the root shinobi confronting Kakashi, they were all overcome with doubts and anxiety at this moment. As the tremors became more intense, bottomless cracks began to form all around the volcano. These fractures were large enough to start hundreds of meters away from the volcano's foot and extend all the way up to the volcano's peak, giving the impression that the volcano and the surrounding land were about to be buried. Is this volcano going to erupt? A nagging doubt emerged in their minds. In the face of such a crisis, the root shinobis turned their backs on Kakashi and focused on how to assess the situation on the inside. Their master Danzo is still inside, therefore they must discover how to contact him and, if necessary, save him. Even Kakashi was concerned. He had no idea what was going on inside the volcano or why it was displaying indications of collapse. He was, however, relieved that he now had the possibility to save all of the Konoha shinobi here. He still hasn't worked out how he'll save over 1,000 shinobis, though. Of course, Kakashi had no idea that the creation of a rinnegan had been stopped because of his hasty resolve to save the Konoha shinobi. If he were to learn of it, he wouldn't know whether to be pleased or disappointed. Somewhere on the edge of the land of fire rumble, the Yondaime Raikage questioned one of the Kumogakure shinobi standing behind him. Is that the direction? After hearing a small rumbling sound in the distance and feeling the vibrations on the earth. Well, the sound is indeed coming from the location where the Konoha shinobi have collected, the Kumogakure shinobi confirmed. Although, if that's the case, then we can't wait any longer, Yondaime Raikage said. Start right away. Yondaime Raikage's attendant, Dodai, instantly halted him. Raikage-sama, over 1,500 Konoha shinobi have gathered there, according to Anbu's report. Our total number, including all Anbu teams, is less than 100. If we ventured into Konoha's territory irresponsibly in such a situation, the situation would quickly spiral out of control. Please, at the very least, wait for the preliminary investigation squads to return so that we can devise an effective plan. Because Raikage's goal is to sneak into the land of fire, I didn't bring many shinobi squads with him. Aside from himself and his personal guards, there are only roughly 20 four-man squads in the area. They've been waiting for the preliminary investigation teams to return for this reason. Although Ai is impatient, he understands that he is Kumogakure's backbone and cannot afford any mishaps. In the current state of the shinobi world, if something happened to him, the entire Kumogakure would be terrified, so he kept his cool and asked, how long would it take for all of them to return? I have already relayed the order to assemble here. It should take no more than 15 minutes for all the squads to return, said Mabui, Yondaime Raikage's assistant. 10 minutes at most. No matter how many squads have assembled by that time, we will depart in 10 minutes, Raikage said, waving his hand. Somewhere else in the land of fire. How far is it, Naomi? Naomi replied. Homusubi-sama, we're almost to their base. All right then, Homusubi said, nodding. As soon as we arrive, I'll take charge of attracting all the attention, and while I battle against them, you'll sneak inside their base and rescue the girl. Understood. Naomi nodded. As a result, Homusubi and Naomi sped up and dashed for one of Root's secret strongholds in an attempt to save Senju Mika from Shimura Danzo's clutches. Inside the volcano. Because Danzo used crystals to close all of the volcano's apertures, the volcano was filled with the dust, smoke, and heat produced by the detonation of hundreds of thousands of explosive tags. The entire volcano was engulfed in smoke and dust in a matter of seconds, as if it were the epitome of hell on Earth. Homusubi and Orochimaru exchanged worried glances while standing inside this hell. The issue is that the volcano's activity is increasing as a result of the earthquake, and it has begun to show signals of eruption, which may be extremely harmful to everyone. Furthermore, the volcano's walls have become increasingly fragile as it begins to crumble as a result of the incessant shaking. Shodame pushed his palms to the ground and yelled, "Wood-style, deep forest emergence!" As the walls of the volcano began to crumble. Countless robust trees appeared out of nowhere, entwined, and protected the volcano's walls from collapsing like sturdy pillars. Everyone exhaled a sigh of relief as they realized the collapse had been avoided. At the same time, everyone was blown away by Shodame Hokage's strength. Only the legendary Shodame Hokage could prevent a 500-meter-high volcano from collapsing with such ease. Orochimaru was the person who was most surprised. Despite the fact that he knew Shodame Hokage's wood style was highly powerful, he had no idea it could be this strong. Senju Hashirama accomplished something that he thought was practically impossible. "Tobirama, the might of the current Danzo is more than you can bear alone," Hashirama exclaimed after preventing the volcano from collapsing. "We'll have to get serious about this." "It appears you are correct, elder brother," Tobirama said as he walked away from the damaged wall, nodding to Hashirama. "So, let's get started." As Shodame became more serious, he clasped his hands together and manipulated the tree vines to assault Danzo's Susanoo, denying Danzo any time to fight back. Countless thick tree vines attacked Danzo from all directions and wrapped around his Susanoo under Shodame's power. Danzo's Susanoo was wrapped in and around by thick tree vines in a matter of seconds, but that wasn't the end of it. As the tree vines began to tighten and crush Danzo's Susanoo one by one. "Damn you!" Danzo screamed violently and unleashed more chakra and visual prowess onto the battlefield. 2 streaks of bloody tears poured down his cheeks, and Danzo's Susanoo began a furious struggle shortly after. Danzo began shredding the tree vines one by one with the brutal force and sharpness of his Susanuu's claws. Simultaneously, the bloody mist coming out of his Susanoo became denser, and the tree vines began to corrode and break loose under its corrosive influence. Shodame grimaced when he saw this, and after weaving the hand motions, he yelled, "Wood Golem Jutsu!" Thousands of trees emerged from the ground and assembled into the shape of a statue-like monster with an oni-like face, a human-like body, and a wooden dragon wrapped around its torso, just a little smaller than Danzo's Susanoo. Shodame leaped on the wooden golem's body as it took shape, commanding it to battle Danzo's Susanoo. Bang! Bang! Boom! Boom! As a result, the Susanoo and the wooden golem attacked each other. With a roar, the wooden golem drove the Susanoo against the volcano's wall with a powerful blow. Shodame didn't allow Danzo a chance to catch his breath after the first successful assault and instead continued to hit him one by one. Shodame appeared to have a good chance of defeating Danzo, considering his advantage over him. But this advantage didn't last long as bloody red crystals began to emerge beneath Golem's feet. The bloody red crystals imprisoned the Golem's motions as they appeared beneath his feet. "Crystal style," says the narrator. Shodame mumbled, frowning. When the wooden Golem's movements were sealed, Danzo used this tiny window to command his Susanoo to pounce on the Golem, putting more effort into fighting Shodame's Golem. The conflict between the two giants shook the cave once more, and the Susanuu's walls began to disintegrate even more. The entire volcano would have crumbled long ago if it hadn't been for Shodame's gigantic trees that supported the cave's walls. "Roar!" The bloody red Susanoo let out another powerful roar at this point, shaking the souls of everyone in the cave. Because Susanoo was not defended this time, even Homusubi was not spared, and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Orochimaru's health deteriorated as he spit a large amount of blood, causing his body to become weak, his face to turn pale, and he to be forced to kneel on the ground while taking deep breaths. Was that the same ability he had just a few minutes ago? But what type of ability is this exactly? He can use sound to directly target his adversary's souls? Homusubi was concerned about Danzo's power to assault the souls of his foes directly. Ordinary shinobi have no way of attacking other shinobi's souls, and up until now, possibly only 2 shinobi had this ability. The first was undoubtedly Senju Tobirama, and the second was Dan Kato, who employed the spirit transformation jutsu. However, it looks that even Danzo has obtained the power to attack souls directly, which is a major problem for his foes. Ordinary shinobi have no way of increasing the strength of their souls except by training the yin chakra, which doesn't improve the strength of the soul very much. As a result, if ordinary shinobi are attacked directly in the soul, they become entirely feeble and helpless, especially those who, like Orochimaru, have made their souls extremely weak by conducting unlawful rituals on them on a regular basis. Orochimaru was the one who suffered the most during this period, and he grumbled, "I never expected Danzo to become such a headache." "And the credit for this goes to none other than you," Homusubi remarked, irritably clicking her tongue. "Danzo would have long since died if you hadn't messed with the ceremony, and we wouldn't be meeting him here." Shodaime, no matter how powerful he is an Edo tensei. Therefore, he can't show off his full potential and can't unleash his most powerful jutsus like veritable 1,000-armed kannon and all that. Because Shodaime isn't at his best right now, Danzo can easily keep up with him. As a result, thinking that the most powerful Hokage will put a stop to Danzo is a naive concept that will never come true. And if Danzo managed to flee this volcano, the danger he would pose to the shinobi world, Amatsukami and Orochimaru, would be enormous. The reason for this is that he will be able to restore his sanity and become acquainted with the 7 Kekkei Genkai in his body, which is something Homusubi does not desire. As a result, she folded her fists in front of her and muttered to Orochimaru beside her, "Strike while the iron is hot. This is our best chance. Let's all assault him at the same time and put a stop to this charade." Orochimaru nodded, agreeing with Homusubi's point of view. "I guess I don't have much of a choice at this point." He then activated the cursed seals he'd implanted in himself. Homusubi used an incredibly enormous flame jutsu on Danzo as soon as her hand songs were finished, and she also reactivated her golden Susanoo to the ultimate winged stage and pounced on him with it. Whoosh! As soon as she rushed toward Danzo, Homusubi used the 4 golden swords of her Susanoo and slashed them at Danzo with all her might. Wheesh! The right arm of Danzo's Susanoo flew out as the golden sword dropped. What the? Danzo was taken aback. He had not expected such a thing to happen. He hadn't expected Homusubi to still be capable of slashing his Susanu's arm with a single stroke. But after a period of shock and amazement, he became enraged. He screamed angrily and waved his fists furiously, attempting to rip Homusubi and her Susanoo to shreds. However, when Homusubi was able to parry Danzo's claw attacks, he became increasingly irritated. Danzo made the hand motions out of rage and restlessness, and the ground underneath them rocked. But unlike the other occasions, this time it wasn't the Susanoo or anything else that attacked Homusubi. Instead, it was the thick tree vines. "Wood style," says the narrator. "So, he really does have more than one Kekkei Genkai?" Shodaime grumbled, frowning. Furthermore, Danzo's control over them appears to be immaculate. Whether it's Susanoo, the preceding crystal style, or the wood style, all of them have been employed really well by Danzo, and they have shown a lot of power. It's as though he's been training them for years. Or, to put it another way, he has intrinsically gained them in a highly powerful form, which implies that, despite his lack of command over them, he can demonstrate immense power from them. Homusubi did not sit still as she saw innumerable tree vines approaching her and attempting to entwine around her contours. She weaved the hand signs by folding her hands together. Except for Shodaime and Nidemi, others were shocked to notice that, in addition to Homusubi's hand signs, her Susanu's arms were also weaving the same hand signs. "Blaze release, Oshihimimi, Golden Lotus of Hell," Homusubi whispered as the hand signs were completed. As soon as she said the name of the jutsu, golden flames flew into the night sky in a radius of almost 100 meters around her, as if the volcano had burst. Oshihimimi is not only Homusubi's distinctive Kekkei Genkai, but also her Susanu's natural ability. As a result, when she uses her Kekkei Genkai while using the Susanoo, the effect is on another level. The bloody red smoke and the blazing golden flames soon began a tug of war. Orochimaru made his move just as Homusubi and Danzo were locked in a tug of battle. The eight-headed serpent's art. Orochimaru changed into a monstrous eight-headed serpent, similar to Yamata no Orochi from tales and folklore, and pounced on the gory red Susanoo after speaking these words. Strangely, contrary to mythology, Yamata no Orochi appeared to be the good man, while Susanoo, the god of thunder and storms who slew it in stories, appeared to be the bad person.